Okay, why do we call the record Geronimo?
My recollection is driving one of those night drives where we might have been coming back from Canada and listening to Fair Play, the Van Morrison song on Beaten Fleece, and being kind of burnt. We'd been driving, and anyway, just that idea of like there's only one way to go, Geronimo.
Right. I know, because we were kind of putting it all on the line
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
Yeah, we were.
And then I remember playing Phoenix and being taken to see Geronimo's cave where he hid out from the army. And just that experience, that sense of everything that was going on in the world at the time, like Columbine, which now is, oh, what's Columbine in the catalog of massacres, domestic massacres in the States, but writing how you're going to bring your children to God after
Which
that.
wasn't on Geronimo, but
Yeah,
right.
but we were singing at that time.
Yeah.
And then after kind of thrown everything in the wind, that's when Tyler called from the Bare Naked Ladies and said that Kevin had received this diagnosis and asked if I and slash we would go out on the road with them. And so we, after kind of throwing away touring and everything, here we are touring with those guys when everything's blowing up for them, and we end up going around the continent and eventually the world. And I remember,
Well, you did.
yeah,
I just did those handful of dates.
right. But I remember being in Chicago at the Chicago Music Exchange and buying a '64 Hofner with Tyler, helped me buy it, and sitting in the back of their bus and writing "Drive While You Sleep," um, which is again such a, for me, being away from our routine and in that world, and just being actually grounded by the experience of our travels. That's what was home. Was us being on the road and playing music. I'd say another important advent of that album is that we fully evolved our relationships with Mike Mazer and Tony Shearer, became a band. Michael Blake, Scotty Hard, who...
So we'd grown up in the band culture of Toronto and Canada. Great talented people, great writers and players, but we all grew up in bands. And these guys, when we got to New York, it was so much more...
Mercenary.
Yeah, musicians who'd studied music and were killer, and lots of jazz guys, and yet they were happy to play, the good ones anyway, are happy to play any song if it's a real song. So we got into this world of all these downtown jazz guys. Tony was playing with the Lounge Lizards. Maze was doing a lot of jazz gigs. He's a drummer. And, Michael Blake was also Lounge Lizards, but did all these beautiful recordings on his own. And we just had this crazy great band. It was insane.
They all played on the record. And then Jane Scarp and Tony did the string arrangements. And our friend Amy Hirschenhorner, who we grew up with in high school, was now managing Bill Laswell's studio in East Orange, New Jersey, and so we ended up making the album there.
That was so fun.
Yeah, it was really a time.
So could we afford that because of the ladies' money? How did that work?
Yeah. Well, we kept a teapot in the kitchen.
We did.
And any money we came back from the bars that we were working in went in the teapot. Tour money, the same, was just paying rent that whole time. And we would take our band on the road. So it was just money in, money out. I also remember on that topic, after the ladies' tour ended, us touring the southwestern U.S. with Rocky Roberts and blowing an engine in Corning, California, having the engine stolen and having to buy a brand new 350, which then I had to drive at 55 down to the Bay Area to meet you on Kings Mountain, where we were playing a gig that night. And when I arrived after all that fuss and just feeling like we're doing the wrong thing, like I just left this enormously prosperous gig. I felt like we were endangering our band, and everybody, I felt like I should get a job. And you're sitting outside, and you're like, Neil and Peggy are here, and Neil Young and Peggy watched the entire set. And after the show, I remember Neil taking me aside and saying, what you did for the ladies was a really good turn, but this is your job. This is your band. Your guitar player's writing great songs, because Tony did an opening set. And I said to him, the timing is really great. because I was just having
You're
a
at
dark
the
night of
end
the
a
soul.
rope.
And he grabbed both my shoulders and he said, "This is your job."
Mm.
And it was kind of like an angel appearing at that moment. Heady times.
Yeah.
Thanks, Neil.